Assalamu alaikum students. Hope you are all fine and safe at your homes. Today we'll discuss about the connective tissue, and in this is the part 1 of the connective tissue. In this we'll discuss only the general aspects of the connective tissue, and then later on we'll do the classification, the special forms of the connective tissue. So we'll discuss what is a connective tissue, what are its various functions, what is the composition of the connective tissue, the composition of the ground substance, and the types of the fibers or which are present in the connective tissue, and the various types of the cells which are present. Now, connective tissue is one of the four basic tissues of the body, along with the epithelium, the muscular tissue, and the nervous tissue. It is of the mesodermal in origin, and it forms the matrix beneath the epithelium, and it connects and supports the underlying the tissues. It is highly vascular and it has the nervous content. You can see here this is the adipose tissue or the hypodermal layer, which is also the form one of the form of the connective tissue. So it's a connecting or supporting framework for the various organs of the body. Now, connective tissue performs the various functions of in the body, but most importantly, they support and connect other tissues. The connective tissue sheath, which surrounds the muscle cells, the tendons attached to the muscles to the bones, and to the skeleton that supports the positions of the body. So it protects the in the form of the protection is a major function of the connective tissue in the form of the fibrous capsules of the bones that protect the delicate organs and the skeletal system. Now, there are various types of cells in connective tissue, but there are specialized cells which defend the body from the microorganisms and thus provides the immunity. It is also responsible for the transport of the fluid, nutrients, waste, and chemical messengers is ensured by the specialized fluid connective tissues such as the blood and the lymph. Adipose cells stores the surplus energy in the form of the fat and contribute to the thermal insulation of the body. Now, there are two main components of the connective tissue, that is the extracellular matrix and the cells. The extracellular matrix comprise of the ground substance and the fibers. The cells, there are various types of cells present in the connective tissue, but these cells, unlike the epithelium, they are far apart from each other and they have a lot of the extracellular matrix in between them. So, as you know, that epithelial cells, they are closely adherent with each other, but the connective tissue cells, they have a lot of the extracellular matrix in between them, and they are highly vascularized. Now, the ground substance, which is present which is one of the basic components of the connective tissue, is consists of an amorphous, transparent, colorless extracellular matrix, and it has a high water content. It supports, surrounds, and binds all of the connective tissue cells and the fibers. Basically the consistency of the ground substance, it is responsible for how much the connective tissue is responsible for the passage of the nutrients. So the composition of the ground substance, it varies in the different types of the connective tissue. Now it consists mainly of the glycosaminoglycan chains and the proteoglycans and adhesive glycoproteins, the central core protein in which the glycoproteins they are attached. There is hyaluronic acid and predominant glycosaminoglycans present in the connective tissue. So these proteoglycans, they are large molecules. They consist of 90 to 95% of the carbohydrates. Now, there are various types of the cells present in the connective tissue, but these basically are divided into two basic types, that is the fixed cells or the resident cells and the transient cells or the wandering cells. The fixed cells, that is, which have to be present into the connective tissue all the time or they remain there in all types of the connective tissue, they are the fibroblasts, adipocytes, right? The macrophages, the mast cells. So these are the resident cells or the fixed cells of the connective tissue. Whereas the white blood cells or the leukocytes, they migrate from the bloodstream into the connective tissue in response to inflammation or other tissue damage. So they are termed as the wandering cells or the transient cells or the migrating cells of the connective tissue. So these eosinophils, the neutrophils, the lymphocytes, they are all the wandering cells of the connective tissue. Now, the fibers which are present in the connective tissue, there are the three types present in the five of the fibers which are present in the connective tissue. The collagen fibers. These collagen fibers, they are thick bundles of the fibers. They are wavy and they provide the tensile strength and the support to the connective tissue. They are abundant in the dense connective tissue and they hold the structures of together. So where the tensile strength is required, there the lot of the collagen fibers they are present. For example, in the tendons and the ligaments. Whereas the elastic fibers you can see here, these are the elastic fibers. Now these elastic fibers, they are thin. They are thin than the collagen fibers and they are branching, right? They are long, cylinder and thin than the collagen and they are branching and they have a elastic component in them. So they are present in the vocal cords and the air passages and the protein or the microfibrils which are present is the elastin which give it a yellowish appearance. Now the reticular fibers, these reticular fibers are thin, short and wavy and they basically are forms the supporting framework or the network of the various organs and they are present where the tensile strength is not required, just a framework, supporting framework is required. For example, in the liver, the spleen, so the reticular tissue, they form the framework of these organs. And these reticular fibers, they are also called the argyrophilic because they are stained with the silver stain. So they are called the silver loving and they are called argyrophilic. Those silver stains, they are very much useful to identify the reticular fibers. Now we'll discuss the cells of the connective tissue one by one. The one of the basic cell of the connective tissue, the fibroblast, which is in the two forms, you can see the immature or the active form, or this is the fibroblast, and the inactive form, they are called the fibrocytes. Now you can see here the difference in appearance of the two cells in the fibroblast and the fibrocytes. Now, these fibroblasts, they are responsible for secretion of the extracellular matrix of the connective tissue, and they are also responsible for the formation of the collagen fibers. Now, you can see in the active fibroblast, it has numerous tentacles-like structures in it and had lot of the mitochondria and other cellular organelles. So it is actively involved in the secretion and formation of the extracellular matrix and the collagen fibers. Whereas in the fibrocytes, you can see that there is a flattened cell with the little cellular organelles and the flattened nuclei. Now, these fibroblasts, in case of the need, they can be differentiated into the adipose cells or the chondrocytes. Now you can see here in this photomicrograph, there are various fibroblasts and the fibrocytes. Now you can see here that these are the large ones. They are the fibroblasts with a lot of the cytoplasm and stained deeply, whereas the fibrocytes, they are the inactive fibrocytes, they are seen as the thin rods-like structures with the flattened nuclei. Now, fibroblasts, they are also the targets of many families of the proteins called as the growth factors. They are involved in the wound healing and they are then called the myofibroblasts. They are enriched with a form of actin found in smooth muscles and have a contractile function also. So they actively participate in the forming the dense irregular scar tissue. Now, another variety, very important cells of the connective tissue, they are the macrophages. Now, these macrophages, you can see here, this macrophage is as a single nucleus. Um, and this macrophages, they are belong to the mononuclear phagocytic system, that is, they are derived from the blood monocytes, and they are the different types of the macrophages which are in the different tissues. In the bones, they are called the osteoclasts, dendritic cells in the nervous system, and in the tissues they are called the histocytes. In the liver cells they are called the Kupffer cells. In the lungs they are called the alveolar macrophages. So by all of them, they belong to the blood mononuclear system, and they are responsible for the phagocytosing the microorganisms, any foreign body, and they have the amoeboid movement, and they play an important role in the engulfing and digestion of the cellular debris and cancer cells. And so they play a very important role in the immunity. That is, they are responsible for engulfing the microbes and any other foreign particles. So they are helping us with the immunity. This is the electron micrograph of the macrophages. Now, they play a critical role in non-specific defense immunity, innate immunity, and also help to initiate the specific defense mechanisms, that is, the adaptive immunity by recruiting other immune cells, such as the lymphocytes. They are important as antigen presenters to the T cells. In humans, the dysfunctional macrophages, they cause the severe diseases such as the chronic granulomatous disease that result in the frequent infections. So they also play an important role in anti-inflammatory role and can decrease the immune reactions through the release of the cytokines. So macrophages that encourage the inflammation, they are called the M1 macrophages, whereas those that decrease the inflammation and encourage the tissue repair, they are called the M2 macrophages. Now there are various types of the macrophages shown here. Now this is a slide of the liver cell, and in these black ones you can see they are called the liver macrophages or the Kupffer cells. So they are responsible for engulfing and phagocytosing any microorganisms which are present and any foreign particles from the blood sinusoids here. So they are lining the blood sinusoids. Then is the in the lungs, you can see the alveolar macrophages, and they will engulf and entrap any dust particles which are or any other foreign particles which are present in the layer. So in the lungs, they are called the alveolar macrophages. Now in the tissues, they are called the histiocytes. Now another very important cell of the connective tissue is the mast cell. Now you can see this is a mast cell, and has a single nucleus, central nucleus, and there are a lot of the vesicles present in the mast cells. So actually it is full of the vesicles. So in H&E stain, it stains basophilic, and these granules, they stain basophilic, you can see, and filled up with these secretory granules. Now, they are oval or irregularly shaped cells filled with basophilic secretory granules, and these granules display metachromasia, that they can change the color of some of the basic dyes. So the cytoplasm is filled by numerous large vesicles, and these mast of cells discharge the content the discharge, they come in contact with the antigens, for example, the proteins on the surface of an invading bacterium, or in allergic reactions in response to the antigens found, for example, on the surface of the pollen grains. So the substances which are released from these vesicles, it is the heparin and the histamine. So they play important role in allergic reactions. So they increase the blood flow in the close by vessels, and the permeability of the vessel wall to plasma constituents and other white blood cells by facilitating the access to the area. So mast cells facilitate an immune response to the antigens which trigger the release of the histamine and the heparin. So antigens, they will cause the triggering effect on the mast cells. The mast cells will release their secretions, that is the heparin and histamine, from these stored vesicles, and it will increase the blood flow and increase the permeability of the blood vessels to the cytokines and the other constituents, and initiate a cascade of immune response. Now the plasma cells, they are the lymphocyte-derived antibody-producing cells, very, very important. So they are responsible for antibody production. So they are large ovoid cells. They have a basophilic cytoplasm rich in rough endoplasmic reticulum and a large Golgi apparatus near the nucleus. The nucleus is eccentric and spherical. Many of these nuclei contain compact peripheral regions of heterochromatin, alternating with the lighter areas of euchromatin. The average lifespan of the plasma cells is only 10 to 20 days. Now, the leukocytes or the WBCs, which are the wandering or the migrating cells of the connective tissue, are derived from the circulating blood cells. They leave blood by migrating between the endothelial cells to enter the connective tissue. So most leukocytes, they function in connective tissue only for few hours or days, then undergo the apoptosis. So we have discussed what is apoptosis. So apoptosis is a programmed cell death which is carried out by the cytochrome C enzyme of the mitochondria. Now, there are various types of the leukocytes shown here, the granulocytes and the agranulocytes. Now, you can see here the neutrophils. Now, these neutrophils, they will be responsible for the acute inflammation. So, if their cells, they are coming from the area of the acute inflammation, that type of the connective tissue will have the lot of the neutrophils. So, neutrophils, they will be in response of acute infections, and you can identify these neutrophils by their multi-lobed nucleus. Now the eosinophils, they are large and eosinophilic because they stain pink by the eosinophil stain, and you can see the lot of the granules here. Now the eosinophils, they are mostly raised in cases of the parasitic infections. Now this is the basophil. You can see it is stained basophilic and a lot of the granules in it. So they are all called the granulocytes. Now the agranulocyte is the monocyte. You can see here the kidney-shaped nucleus in the monocyte, which is large with a large nucleus. And this is the lymphocytes. The lymphocytes are of various types. And these lymphocytes, you can see the large central nucleus with just a rim of the cytoplasm. So they are basically the wandering cells or the migrating cells of the connective tissue. So in case of acute infections, you can have a lot of the neutrophils in the connective tissue, but in case of chronic infections, you can have the lymphocytes and the granuloma formation even in the cases of the chronic infections. Then another cell types is the adipocytes. The adipocytes, they are also called as the lipocytes or simply the fat cells. Now you can see here these fat cells, they have an eccentric nucleus because all of the cytoplasm is filled with the large globule of the fat. So the cytoplasm is shifted towards one side and they have a signet ring appearance. We'll discuss this adipose tissue and we'll discuss all these lipocytes in detail because this is forming a special type of the connective tissue. So these are specialized in storing the lipids as the neutral fats or less commonly for the production of heat. So you can see here, this is the hypodermal layer below the dermis, and this is basically the insulating layer of your body which conserves the heat of the body. and also forms the cushion and insulate the skin and the other organs. So this is about the general connective tissue, the general connective tissue. And this you have just know the basic what is the composition and what is the various fibers and the cells present in the connective tissue. Then later on we'll discuss the classification and the special types of the connective tissue, and each type of the connective tissue with examples we'll discuss later on. Thank you so much.